like maps? How about a detailed hand-drawn map that reflects your favorite people, places, and things? Visit Cartograph Me on Instagram or Facebook and see the possibilities and the works of artist Philip Bailey. Remember, Cartograph Me, putting you on the map.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
It's Xylia.
And this is the bottom of your bag of bits and bites, that's all Shreddy's Mike.
And we are back for the third installment of Oktoberfest. Insert clapping noise or just general groans, however you feel about our, there we go, Xylia's into the spirit. Yeah, we're back with another one.
Or is this spirit in her?
Oh, this is
if you
true.
Catch my drift.
No comment.
Probably just talking about booze. So, we are back, but before we get into anything, this time I have a question, unlike the last episode. So let's get right into the question. I want to know, over the years, since you first started watching horror, how has your horror taste changed? So, maybe you liked, just trash and now you like artsy stuff, or the other way around, or maybe there's something you don't like anymore. Let's start with you, Mike.
Well, first of all, you just described my evolution, so fuck you, and I have no answer. I mean, listen, I always loved trash when I was a youngster, and I still do, but I feel like my taste has refined in more of an aesthetic manner. I feel like I like a lot of the same stuff because I feel like maybe because I started watching horror movies at such a young age, the things that I watched had such a effect on me that I still love them. But I feel like I'm less impressed by trash that has nothing to offer now than I was when I was 10. But I also appreciate more over the years, style became so much more of a key element of any film, but especially horror to me. So I feel like aesthetics and style and really stylized horror films that even don't have much of a plot are definitely more important to me. And I think that started with Suspiria, spoiler alert, are just, it's, even though they can still be trash, but I feel like when I was younger, I liked a lot of trash that didn't even have an aesthetic. It was just trash with no taste. Whereas now I love movies with taste and trash with taste. So that's all I'm saying about that.
All right. Xylia, how about yourself?
So this is really interesting because I've been watching the bulk of the horror movies for our Oktoberfest Instagram posts. So I've watched a horror movie basically every single day this month. And by basically, I mean I have. And even over this month, my taste has I've found new things I like. So I guess when I first started watching horror movies back when I was a kid, it was a lot of just more, I'm not saying the stuff I watch now isn't mainstream, but it was more the bigger horror movies that were
popcorn blockbuster.
Popular. Yeah, exactly. And then I'm also very visual, and I love the aesthetic of I look for aesthetic and style, and basically if there's ever a movie that looks like people are on psychedelics, I'm totally into that look. And I love, not just in horror but in general, I love movies that are you have to think, they're very intelligent, I guess. So I either like movies that are like very intelligent, or like movies that are, or TV shows that are like absolute trash, mindless. But over the month, I've realized that I really love like 1980s horror comedies.
Yes, girl, come to this side.
I actually like love them. They're one of them I watched. Can I just say it? Okay, so I watched Brain Damage, and I actually like pretty much watched it twice. And it is probably one of my favorite movies. Have you seen that, Mike?
No, I haven't.
Basically this guy like
Is that the one where the cover of it is like a face stretched out, like it's like skin stretched out?
No, I know what you're thinking about.
That's the stuff. This is basically
the cover's like a guy laughing.
Yeah, with like this thing on him.
Okay.
It combines both 1980s horror comedy as well as like psychedelic drugs.
Oh, so like a potent cocktail for you.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the same guy that made the Basket Case movie.
Yeah.
See, that's what I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, because when you describe it, it sounds like the stuff, but that's okay, whatever.
No, well, it's not the stuff. I know the stuff. See, I'm thinking of an old VHS cover, but
Maybe.
I actually could be thinking of a different movie. I'm pretty sure I am.
You definitely are, and I think it's also called Brain Damage. And it's like literally like someone's face stretched by hooks.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. It's obviously a different movie. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But you're on the right track.
Okay.
Basically, welcome Xylia. We'll get your membership card into Trashy Movie Fan Club.
I think I just like really like horror comedies in general.
You like it on the lighter side.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I also like the look of them. I mean, that's an aesthetic choice as well. But like last night we watched Microwave Massacre. That was quite the movie. We didn't finish it yet, but
it's basically like the equivalent of just watching like a really bad porno. It's like the same acting skills. In fact,
the acting
except you don't get off.
I mean,
maybe. The acting is absolutely horrific. Basically, the general plot, from what I can tell, is this guy who works at a construction site. His wife is like a stay-at-home wife, and she makes him gourmet food from different cultures, and he's like so against it that he starts eating his dog's food, and then he's so against it even further that he kills her and then starts eating her body parts. So he'd rather that than delicious gourmet food from other cultures. I mean, that's really saying something. It's also like incredibly sexist movie.
But if she was eating that food and he ate her, then that means that by eating her, he's also eating that food.
True.
Cannibal logic.
I'm just like, the transitive property says that he's still eating gourmet food when cannibalizing his wife.
Very true.
So on my end, I was thinking about the question, and it's almost kind of hard because, like Mike, I've been watching horror movies pretty much since I was born, and I've always liked all kinds of horror movies, whether it's like big blockbusters or just kind of the video nasty VHS horror stuff. And I totally agree, like, almost an aesthetic. Like, I definitely have an aesthetic I prefer in my horror movies. I love movies that are kind of that It Follows, like, with, like, amazing, like, synth or synth pop soundtracks. But one thing I will say, probably going the opposite direction of Xylia, you know, leaning into horror comedies, on the other end of the spectrum, which is basically the psychopath spectrum, is I find myself getting more and more into, like, I guess, shock horror. So, you know, like, just stuff that I'm like, what can I watch that, you know, will put me on a watch list and disturb most people. So, you know, obviously like stuff like a Serbian film and Martyrs and kind of that French New Wave style. Just kind of, I'm interested in extremes of storytelling and how, you know, they use shock or gore or very taboo subjects to get across storylines and, horrify people. And then last night I actually finally finished The House That Jack Built, because, obviously Lars von Trier is, my god.
I still haven't seen that. I truly can't wait.
I will say this, hopefully we'll review it for the podcast at some point.
Matt Dillon is in that, right?
Yeah. I remember when it came out, we were really hesitant to see it in the theater. I know, they did a premiere in Toronto, and I don't think Xylia was thrilled, and the reviews were like, oh, there's a lot of gruesome stuff, and, children are involved, and blah, blah, blah. I will say, kind of a letdown, it's the most toned down Lars von Trier I've ever seen. And, there's literally nothing. Saw was more shocking than this was.
I have to say, the number one thing that prevents me from wanting to see that movie is the fact that Matt Dillon's in it.
How dare you?
I think I would have been more interested in it if it was someone that I didn't know.
He's really good in it. And it's
Matt Dillon is so fucking underrated. I'm sorry.
It's not just about him. I think it's just he's such a
You wanted an
person.
unknown actor, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. It's not him personally,
but I feel too, this podcast is about Lars von Trier movies, but he's in it too, because that's kind of Lars' signature thing is actors that you wouldn't think would be in his movies star in his movies, because
Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst is totally acceptable. She hasn't done a movie in years.
Kirsten Dunst, William Dafoe,
right?
Yeah.
Yes, let's bring in Charlotte Gainsbourg.
Yeah, and she's incredible. Anyway, we can't get
I love that woman so much. Anyway.
Can I just have an episode where I review every Lars von Trier movie? Horror or not?
Oh my god, and we can just talk about Bjork for 2 fucking hours.
Let's do it. Yeah, so let's get into our feature film for the evening. Do you want to introduce it?
Sure. This was my Halloween pick, and it is Daniel Isn't Real.
So let's get into the trailer, and we'll come back with the bio in a little special segment that Xylia has planned up for us.
It's common for people to see things that aren't real. Have you ever seen things like this before?
I had an imaginary friend when I was a kid. His name was Daniel. He was my best friend. He was my only friend.
It's kind of a strange notion, but maybe you should try to connect with that part of yourself again.
You needed my help.
Last time I saw you, you were this kid bursting with imagination.
You need to break out and live.
I bet you can get a phone number from any girl at this party.
You're a painter?
You're an artist too, Luke.
I do photography sometimes.
I'm here because you're here. I'm part of you.
What's that thing behind me?
Your shadow saw something full of danger. Mystery.
He's taking over. He's making me do things that I don't want to do.
You do this?
I imagined you. I can make you go right.
Daniel is simply an aspect of your mind.
I'm scared of what I could do. When you painted me, you saw a shadow. What did he look like?
He's weak. He's lonely. And he's nothing without me.
So, the IMDb bio. A troubled college freshman, Luke, suffers a violent family trauma. He then resurrects his charismatic childhood imaginary friend Daniel to help him cope, not realizing how dangerous Daniel is. So before we talk about this film, we have that special segment that Xylia's gonna bring us. Why don't you explain it to the people?
Okay, so from now on, I thought we would kind of veer back into our kind of like sociological imagination a little bit. And so from now on, we're going to be, well, I will present it and then we'll discuss it. We'll be talking about the Bechdel test for each movie. So basically what that is that it's a test. If anybody has ever read the graphic novel Fun House, I believe
Fun Home.
Or Fun Home, sorry, Fun. I'm wearing a shirt that says house, so I have house on the mind.
That's fine,
House on the brain. Fun Home. Alison Bechdel basically, like, created this. So anyways, basically the test is, like, are there two women in the movie? And if so, is there a scene where they talk about something besides the man or men in the movie, and it's like extra if they're also named. So as we were watching Daniel Isn't Real,
and I mean, of course the purpose of it is to test like
feminism,
the boundaries of, you know, like sexism and misogyny in most movies, especially mainstream movies.
Yeah, so I basically did this test on Daniel Isn't Real and it failed.
As soon as she said, dear listeners, as soon as she said, I'm doing the Bechdel test, I like just looked at her and went, it failed miserably.
Yeah.
I didn't even know she was doing it. As soon as she said the words Bechdel test in reference to this movie, I knew it was going to fail.
There was the mother, there were two girls that were like
love
with
interest.
Them. Well, I'm thinking the girl and the girl that was for the other guy. And then the love interest. And like, yeah, no. Everything else is very male-centric.
It didn't surprise me that it failed it with flying colors.
And of course, this is not a scientific thing or like some kind of rigorous rubric. It's just an informal sort of almost fun like way of looking at a very serious issue, which is, you know, the representation and like the way that women are written in Hollywood films, in independent films, like just in movies in general. But like it you know, it's obviously not like, you know, this like rigorous scientific method, but it does, you know, it's essentially just meant to like draw your attention to the fact that like maybe you should be paying attention to like the way that women are represented in film more than you do, because you might not even realize how misogynistic and sexist some movies are. And even if it's not an overt thing, even if it's just by excluding them, that's this sort of like void violence, you know what I mean? Like it's sort of misogynistic and sexist in that it completely ignores their existence as human beings.
And it goes like, I mean, of course it goes far beyond the movie alone, like how exclusionary the like movie industry is and culture in general. And I think they should add like an intersectional dimension where it's like women of color or something,
of course,
because I mean, I would think like most movies would probably fail that. But so I'm interested to see going forward, like what movies pass and what movies fail.
And it's interesting to. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just gonna say before seeing this, I thought it may have a chance, but yeah, no.
I was gonna say it would also be interesting to look at movies that, because while it's not something that everybody knows of, especially among like, you know, kind of like film savvy people and like people that are critical of movies and people that read a lot about movies and who have like an online presence for like the last 20 years, it is kind of a fairly well-known like idea, the Bechdel test. So I think it's also interesting as we go forward, like you said, and kind of like use this as just a lens by which to look at representation in movies, not to critique it rigorously, but, you know, just as like kind of like, here's another stance we can take, here's another like window to look through. But like to look at ones that were done before it was kind of a minor cultural phenomena and after, because I don't think that it's gonna make that big of a difference, because I feel like it's still sexist. But I feel like, you know, maybe we can look at it and say that people are trying a bit more, or maybe not. I don't know. I just think it's gonna be really interesting to look at like pre-Bechdel test and post-Bechdel test.
I feel like
BC and AD.
I feel like representation's great, but also tokenism comes when it's just like focused solely on representation.
Oh yeah, I mean it's got to be like actual substance.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just throwing like a woman or like a woman of color in there is not it's not good enough just for the hell of it.
Do better.
Do better. I mean, do better. As a woman, please do better.
Yes, and that starts by hiring better.
Yes.
Hire women of color to direct your movies, please.
Yes.
To write them, to produce them, to cast them, to do the fucking grips. Hello.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, just not, like you're saying, like not just on screen, but behind the scenes too.
Everywhere. It's such like an issue, and you know, the more people you have who are not just like, you know, straight white dudes doing everything, like the better that environment is going to become, you know, for like actually looking at things in like a more substantial manner.
Yeah, you can have as many women in it as you want, but if there's not women that play a role in like actually making it, then I mean, yeah, you're basically
it's
just
still
getting a movie by men.
Yeah, it's still like women as presented by a dude.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, oh, look, see, we have like 3 women in our movie, and they're all, you know, completely caricatured because it's some Jonathan Franzen wannabe.
Yeah.
Writing the script and then directing it and then starring in it because, you know, nobody else can interpret his sage screenplay like he can.
It's like when male actually, sorry, this is like my last side note here. We talked about this in during my master's. I took a class about sexism and racism, discrimination in general in the workplace, and we discussed how like male academics and like female academics really don't do this, but male academics, some of them tend to like reference themselves a lot in their work. There's like, what's his name? David Harvey. Like, he basically produces all this academic work, and the only person he cites pretty much is himself. Like,
I will say, I had a professor who taught a course that was very popular, and it was in a psychology department when I was doing my psychology minor, and it was one of those that took place in a 350 person auditorium. It was a humongous class. It was a huge deal, and he literally exclusively taught the class. As far as I know, he had no TAs, and
did he use his own book?
Wrote the textbook and taught his own textbook, and
that's
that was it.
Common
and there was
now.
nothing. It is horrifically common.
So many
I almost said
professors do that now.
horrifically condom. It's also horrifically condom, as in please slap a rubber on it and don't give birth.
Did that
to
textbook
your
give you a
own
boner
fucking,
or what?
The textbook gave me a huge, massive hard on. Thank you, reviewer, who took issue with my language. By the way, this is how I speak, even in front of my 4 and 10-year-old godchildren. So, you know, I'm not trying to be an edgelord. This is just the way I talk.
We try to rein him in, but we just can't. So let's first talk about is this our first experiences with the film? Xylia, this was your pick, so was this your first time?
Yeah, this is my first time seeing it. I watched the trailer like several times, but yeah.
And I was gonna say, this was the same as me. We've seen the trailer together, and it always pops up on Shudder to watch.
Mostly because we have it on our to watch list.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of stuff about it. I know like a lot of other podcasts kind of covered it when it came out last year, and it always looked like it would interest me. Mike, what about you? First time?
Oh yeah, this was like a cherry buster. I had never even heard of it until we decided that we were going to cover it in this episode. And I'm not gonna lie, when X said, I'm doing Daniel Isn't Real, I don't know why, I just had this horrific flashback to like Me and shit, and I thought that it was just going to be this weird $5 dime store Dollarama DVD horror film. And then you guys told me it was on Shudder, so of course, I settled in actually one night in bed, with my notepad and a cup of tea, and just was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this now, and that's gonna be the last thing I do before I go to bed, thinking that I'd fall asleep 3 minutes into it because it was gonna be some weird fucking bizarre mumblecore horror film, and immediately being bizarrely surprised when I saw Patrick Schwarzenegger in it. So, but I was actually flabbergasted by everything about it. So I had no experience with it, knew nothing about it. It was a totally new experience for me. So that was actually wonderful.
We need like a sound effect alert, like when the Shea Brigade's approaching.
I mean, it's essentially just when me or X open our mouths.
Yeah, pretty much. That actually reminds me about your question about how things have progressed. I love mumblecore.
Xylia does love mumblecore
I
horror.
know you do, and I was not trying to shade you on it.
No, I think we all gave Like Me an A. I think. Let me just whip out my spreadsheet here.
Let me whip out my spreadsheet, she says.
Didn't I send that to you?
Yeah,
you did. Yeah.
So before we get into the meat of the review, let's quickly talk about some of the wonderful actors and such that were in the film. So the film is directed by Adam Egypt Mortimer.
Isn't it Mortimer?
Is it Mortimer? I don't know. Mortimer. Either way, it doesn't matter.
I love your pronunciations. I will never get old. I've heard them for years. We've been doing it on this podcast for over a year. I love it.
Mike, you know Suge Knight? Like Tupac, Suge Knight?
Oh, of course, Suge Knight. Oh, Suge Knight, as he probably called it.
Rowan always called him Suge Knight.
Suge Knight.
And I was like, you're like the biggest fan of rap. Like,
take my hip hop credentials away. Just the white guy in me coming out.
You're cast off. You're cast out. I'm sorry.
So the director, I don't have anything written down because I think this was kind of his first like major feature film. So next, if there's anything you can remember this movie by is that it's kind of, the movie starring famous celebrities' kids. So, let's start with Luke. Playing Luke is, Miles Robbins, who is Tim Robbins' son. And I know we discussed before we started recording that I myself, didn't realize it was his son, till after, and I looked. But he has been in some stuff recently. He was in the amazing Netflix show, The Get Down. He was in My Friend Dahmer.
Who did he play in The Get Down?
I forget his name, but he was one of the white guys in it.
Wow, how...
I can't think of his name. I remember him being in it. He was also in the newer episodes of The X-Files. And then probably to ground this in horror, he was in the 2018 Halloween. So definitely has been in some things. Next up, playing Daniel is Patrick Schwarzenegger. I mean, I feel like once you hear the last name, I don't really need to say who his dad is. His biggest two credits, I would say, would probably be Grown Ups 2 and fan favorite show. I know everyone is a fan of the show on this podcast. A little show called Scream Queens.
Who did he play in Scream Queens?
I don't write these things down. He's in Scream Queens.
Isn't he one of the
he's one of the
fraternity
frat
brothers?
Guys. Yeah, he's one of the fraternity brothers.
They don't have a name other than Chad Radwell.
Chad Radwell.
We love Chad Radwell.
R.I.P. Chad Radwell.
Chad Radwell Stanwells, Chad Stanwells, Stan Radwell. I don't know really what we should call ourselves.
Stan Radwell.
I like it's like watching a train just going off the tracks.
And just mowing down like an orphanage full of children.
Next up, we have Sasha Lane playing Casey. I thought she was
her.
Yeah, she was great.
Was her name Cassie or Casey?
It was Cassie.
Cassie.
Did you say? I think you said Casey.
Oh, I meant to say Cassie. Probably most recognizable. I recognize her from American Honey, which was her film debut. She's also in the new Hellboy, as well as Utopia. And she is going to be one of the stars of the Loki TV show that Marvel is putting out.
You did not even mention the one thing that I love her most from, and I'm so disappointed.
And what is that?
And that is the brilliant, underseen Chloe Grace Moretz Hello Scream Queens indie film, The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which is about a girl going to a conversion camp in the 90s.
Oh, I haven't seen that, but I know I've seen the cover for it.
Excellent. She's on the cover of it, and she's really, really, really good in it. And actually, it was probably a half hour into the movie before I realized that I kept looking at her and going, why do I know her? Part of it was American Honey. I don't know why I didn't make the connection, but then, it clicked. I was like, oh my god, that's the girl from Miseducation of Cameron Post, which, by the way, everybody should watch. It's a really, really, really great underrated movie.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because it's been popping up for me lately on stuff. So I'll
also an excellent book. A really
next
book.
up, we have Mary Masterson playing Claire.
Excuse me, she's Mary Stuart Masterson. I cannot believe you called her Mary Masterson. Who is that? Who is Mary Masterson? She is Mary Stuart Masterson. She is a queen. She is fucking iconic. 80s, 90s, like Fried Green Tomatoes. My Bitch and Some Kind of Wonderful. She's been in literally every movie.
The Stepford Wives. And then the other thing I think was well noted for her is because she's the only person on this list that she hosted Saturday Night Live. That's always impressive. Not every day we review a horror film with someone that hosted Saturday Night Live. So the last couple, we have Hannah Marks, who played Sophie. She was in Accepted, The Runaways, The Amazing Spider-Man, Weeds, Southbound, and Doll Graveyard. I don't even know if I want to attempt it. I feel like I'm gonna butcher his name. It's like Chukwudi Iwoji or something like that.
Where is it?
Right here. He's Nigerian, I think. But
he's the therapist.
The therapist, yeah. But impressive short filmography. He was in Barry, which was like the Netflix biopic about Barack Obama. He was in John Wick 2, and he was in a whole bunch of Doctor Who, which I feel is nerd cred right there. And then last but not least is Peter McRobbie, who played Piercy, and he was in
Who's Piercy?
a lot of stuff. We'll talk about it later, because I definitely don't remember him in the film.
Okay.
Yeah. He's been in the most stuff. Like, he was in The Visit. He was in Daredevil, the TV show. He played the priest.
Oh my god, he was the old, like, grandfather in The Visit. Holy shit.
Yeah, he was in Lincoln. He was in Inherent Vice. And he was in Brokeback Mountain. So I was just
Stan.
like... Yeah, I was like, this guy is definitely in it. But that's everyone for the cast list. So let's get into our favorite scene / favorite kill. However psychopathic you're feeling this evening. Let's start with you, Xylia.
My favorite scene? Why do I always forget that we do these categories?
We do them every time, so I don't know why.
I know. I don't know. I can't really pinpoint a favorite one. I think that there were, like, so many good scenes.
What an Xylia cop-out.
Come back to me. And
Okay,
I'll
Mike.
let you know.
Mike has his hand raised. Mike, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that honestly, the kind of opening opus, when you couldn't figure out what was going on, and when several of the little plot elements were all separated and they were all very jarring, like the scene with Buddy going into the restaurant and shooting up, and the scenes with the youngster and stuff like that. I thought that was just the whole movie. It stuck with me. I thought they were really well filmed, and it was nonsensical at first, obviously, because they don't want you to put the pieces together right away. But
yeah.
I thought it introduced all of the major, like, plot threads that would come together later, like, just in such a cool manner. And I don't know, it was really well filmed and kind of shocking. Like, the scene that even what was it, like, less than a minute of Buddy, like, walking in and, like, shooting up the cafe and stuff. I just thought it was so terrifying. Honestly, I thought it was so shocking and jarring. And it just right off the bat, right? Like, to kind of cold open the movie like that was really a bold choice. And I thought it was just a really great way to do it. A great scene.
Did you read the bio?
Yeah.
So I must have, like, completely zoned out during the bio, but I've read the bio on a couple different places before. And I'm just, before I say what my favorite scene is, like, it's on the bio, it says how it's all brought about by a violent family trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So tell me what that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily I mean, he does have the family trauma of his mom. Like, he went through that traumatic experience.
getting divorced.
And then he's dealing with his parents getting divorced, and his mom's obviously, like, her mental health.
Okay, but that's not the violent family trauma that's precipitates this thing. I'm just saying.
Because of their discord at home, which is maybe not physically violent, he witnessed that death, which is obviously traumatic.
Not a traumatic violent family trauma. Anyways,
no,
I just
but
thought
they're
that
intertwined.
Was a weird...
The act of violence that he witnessed is inextricably linked with the like psycho-emotional violence of his childhood. I don't know. Listen,
it's just how it was worded in the bio really bothered me.
It's all right. It's only IMDb, so.
Well, on Shudder, it has something similar too, and I'm like, it makes it sound like his dad shot up his house or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Maybe they misread the movie. I don't know.
No, I definitely didn't misread it.
No, not you. The people that wrote all the copy.
Maybe they weren't paying attention to the movie.
That's a shame.
I really specifically I enjoyed them all so much that no specific scene stood out to me as the best.
Okay, well that's a reasonable cop out. So
oh yeah, it's
so for me, I probably have two favorite scenes. The first one is when they take, I think it's Sophie, and they like go wherever they are, like
the tunnels.
In the tunnels, we really get Daniel giving us his best Patrick Bateman impression, where he's like taking pictures of himself while having sex with Sophie, and I just kept thinking about American Psycho. I mean, realistically, any scene with Daniel... Don't just stare
at it, eat it.
Any scene with Daniel reminded me of American Psycho. Like, I really felt like he channeled some of Christian Bale in this role.
I think it's the hair somewhat, and also I must say probably one of my favorite parts of this movie was how incredibly stylish Daniel is.
He was very stylish.
He's incredibly stylish, and then Luke at the end tried to like wear the same outfit, and it just like
did not pull it off.
No,
like, and that's the thing. Like, it's not even. It's like, man, you either got it or you don't. Like, you can't just slap a slick hairstyle and nice clothes on somebody and like they'll pull it off. Like,
no,
if you don't have the vibe, if you don't have like the look, you can't do it. It's not gonna work. And he's just he was so stylish, and it gelled so well with like kind of his vibe and his personality, and yeah.
But yeah, that was probably one of my favorite scenes. And not just, like I said, not just because I was like, oh, American Psycho. Like, I loved the like terror of that scene, that's when we get into like the real body horror of it, where we like kind of discover Daniel can, come out of his mind and use him as this muse. And I love that. I thought that whole concept was amazing. But probably on the top of my statue of amazing scenes in this, I really loved the whole ending sequence. Not the stuff with Miles Robbins, like, playing Daniel, but Miles Robbins, like, trapped in that labyrinth, where we get kind of, like, the demon. I can't think of his name, but it's, like, essentially we discover that demon is the shooter from the beginning of the movie.
Well, no.
I thought that's what it was.
Daniel is like attaches himself to.
Yeah, he's like a psychic parasite.
Yeah,
that's what I look
and
at
this
it.
guy's like the left.
I mean, he's like possessing him to do it.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
He kind of jumps from body to body.
Yeah,
and I love the visual of that like demon thing, and like he had like the spikes kind of out of his head. I loved obviously the lighting of all those scenes.
That demon, like the silhouette looks like Sasha Velour from RuPaul's Drag Race.
Okay, so now that you brought up the very astute reference to Sasha Velour, who I also saw in that, can we talk about how the entire movie, every time I looked at Miles Robbins, I actually, when the movie started, I said out loud, even though I was lying in my bed at 1 o'clock in the morning by myself, I looked at him and went, is that Manila Luzon?
Oh my god.
He looks so much like Manila Luzon, like, without drag on. I was like, it's Manila! I could not even remember his name in the movie because every time I saw him on the screen, I was thinking Manila. I was like, Manila is in this movie. This is a Manila Luzon horror movie.
And the person that he keeps reminding me of is Cole Sprouse.
He's very Cole Sprouse. It's so funny. That's exactly what I was thinking too.
And I mean, since we're on the topic of them, I did want to say too, like, I thought both of them did like a really incredible job. Obviously once afterwards I looked at what Miles Robbins had been in, I realized like I've seen him and I remember his performances. And like I thought he did a real good job, but I thought like Patrick Schwarzenegger like knocked it out of the fucking park.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been as good as he was.
No, I was like,
he shouldn't have been, yeah.
I knew it was Arnold's son in this, and I'm like, how good can Arnold Schwarzenegger's like son possibly be? Because it's not like Arnold is like, you know, a thespian of the theater here. And yeah, I was really, really impressed. Like, I would love to see him in other kind of high, whatever you want to call it, highbrow or like artsy horror. Like, I'd love to see him.
I think it's one of those cases where like the supporting actress kind of just like completely outshines
they like chew up the scenery.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I feel like the thing that he has in common with his father is, as you alluded to, like, Arnold is not exactly, like, gonna win an Oscar. But the thing about him is that he has this, like, unteachable, like, genetic, almost, like, charisma, right?
Yeah,
Even though he's wooden as hell and can't act his way out of a paper bag, technically he's not good, but, like, the reason why everybody, and, you know, like, we all love him, like, we all watch his movies, like, even if you don't want to, is because he has this, like, you know, that like, it factor, right? Like, he just has this charisma, and I found that Patrick also has that. Like, is his acting, like, technically great? Like, no, it's passable. But again, he, like, chews up the scenery, and he knows, like, he plays up, like, his natural sort of, like, charisma and his natural, like his looks and everything. Like we were saying, he's really stylish, and he uses that to, like, compensate for the fact that he's not clearly, like, you know, a really great, like, trained actor. But it doesn't matter because he knows what he's doing and he fucking, like, completely lives that role and just chews up the scenery and loves it, and he's having a good time. And I feel like in a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger's movies, that's kind of the same way. And it's like, yeah, you're wooden as hell, but, like, I love you and I laugh at you and I can't take my eyes off you. And I feel like they both have that quality, and that's why, like, I mean, like, Arnold was coming from, like, this, you know, whole other, like, you know, not being a native English speaker and, like, kind of, you know, coming to this new world, right? But, like, Patrick is, like, now part of this dynasty, right? Like, he's entrenched in this, so I feel like he almost is using that self-awareness in, like, a really interesting way to amplify his natural, like, charisma and charm. And
I also love how he basically did this movie because he was inspired by Nicolas Cage and Mandy.
Oh my god, I've been talking about Mandy so much the last couple weeks.
And I mean, you can definitely, we didn't bring it up in any of the credits, but Daniel Radcliffe's company.
No, Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood, how dare you?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
They own
I'm like everyone else on the internet. I just can't keep them straight.
They don't look anything alike.
I was gonna say, it's like white brunette guys.
They might be like both shorter.
I was gonna say, I think it's like short white brunette guys. Like,
I think they've done skits for like Saturday Night Live. I've seen something where they make where it's making fun that everyone gets them mixed up.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up, because when I got near the end of this movie, like, I didn't know, like I said, I knew nothing about it. I didn't look up anything. I knew that because it was an X pick, I wanted to go into it blind, because I was like, this is either going to be really interesting or like a complete train wreck. But either way, I didn't want, like, I say that out of love. I was like, either way, I don't want to go into it with any preconceived notions. And it was good that I did that, because I was very pleasantly surprised by a lot of things. But when I remember it was like right at the very end, like right before the credits were going to roll, I kind of like kept getting this weird nagging feeling. And then as soon as the credits came up and I saw Elijah Wood's name, I went, I fucking knew it! I knew Elijah Wood was involved with this somehow. Because it had that like weird, it had Elijah Wood in a really subtle way stamped all over it. And that's such a fucking compliment because he like is totally about like genre film now and like helping indie filmmakers, and I fucking live for it.
FYI, Mike, I do the same thing with your picks, so don't worry about it.
Okay, good. Yeah, it was not a read. I wasn't throwing shade. I like legitimately, I love going into X picks, not knowing anything about it and having no preconceived notions. Sometimes it really pleasantly surprises me, and sometimes I'm like, what the fuck have I done with my life?
Yeah, and it definitely,
but not very often. I gotta say that, not very often. Only like 2 times.
Like Me. That's all we really have to say.
Like Me and the Mumblecore Ghost movie. I can't even remember the name.
Lace Crater.
Lace Crater. Oh my god. I will say this right now, dear listeners. I was disappointed by Lace Crater for a very listen. For a very specific reason. And the reason is this. I knew nothing about it, and again, I went into it like just watching it blind with no preconceived notions, except that it was one of your picks. But I had built it up to such a degree because it had such a beautiful, poetic, evocative, unique, like gorgeous, sparkling, shimmering title that it was obviously going to let me down because it was garbage.
My mouth was wide open the entire time you just spoke. How dare you?
Yeah, we love Lace Crater.
I was like, you were in awe? You were in awe of
You obviously don't like that style, I feel. Because it's like, they're both kind of like the same style. I mean, they're both mumblecore, but they're both generally the same style.
And I was gonna say, like, obviously, I feel this is probably definitely always gonna get, like, the Mandy comparisons, because it is Elijah Wood's company that does both of them. The Spectra Vision, I think, is his company. And they obviously have really created, like, that look for their films. We always talk about it, especially me. You know, I call it the Rent look, the Drive look. Neon colors, like the blues and the pinks.
Kind of candy-coated,
Reds,
yeah, like, it's just very Argento.
We were driving on the highway the other day back from his parents' house, and there's like a weed place that grows it on the highway, and it was dark out, and there was just like fucking massive greenhouse, and it was just colored like it was from one of those movies.
It was just pink, bright
yeah, it was
neon
just like
pink,
bright pink, and it was like everything else was pitch black. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very, very sweet. Yeah, I was, like Mike said, I was very pleasantly surprised with kind of a lot of this film, because I felt I was worried it was overhyped, because I've seen, like I said, I've seen a lot of people review it and talk about it.
A couple people commented and were like, oh my god, I can't wait to like hear what you think about this. And
yeah, and it just, yeah, I just didn't, I was worried it was overhyped. And then I came in, I was very pleasantly surprised that it seemed to kind of meet the hype, I thought. One thing I did want to kind of bounce off everyone and talk about, obviously, as we said, like, the film deals pretty heavy with, like, mental health and you know, kind of, I guess you'd call it, like, you know, generational mental health. Like, obviously, this family has a mental health history.
Well, schizophrenia is, like, very much tied to genetics. Like, if your parent has schizophrenia, there's a fairly decent chance that you will as well.
Yeah, a lot of them are, like, kind of hereditary, but, like, for whatever reason, schizophrenia seems to be really more so tied to, like, your lineage than a lot of other mental illnesses.
Yeah, it's a lot less environmental. Like, basically an environmental thing will occur, and that's what, like, basically triggers the schizophrenia, but you're like highly predisposed to it because of your genetics.
Yeah. It's like a latent thing that gets triggered by an external matter,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Rowan.
Well, no, I was just going to say, you go ahead and then I'll...
I was just going to say it's really interesting because we're also watching the third season of Channel Zero right now, and it's kind of dealing with the same thing. The main character, her mom is schizophrenic, and as well as her sister, and she is really scared that she will be as well, and I think she will end up being that way. But it's interesting because this is like a son, and he's scared that he's going to be schizophrenic as well. Like it must be in real life like quite a scary thing, and you don't know like what's going to happen to trigger it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, all I was asking was, with these portrayal of mental health, issues, how we felt about, like, did we feel it was done with care, like, accurately? Was there anything that maybe was, like, a little problematic? I mean, other than...
Yeah, it's like, was it exploitative or not?
Yeah. Just because obviously this can be a tricky subject, and, as become further aware as time goes on as a society, like, we're looking for these things more in our media. So, yeah, I was just curious what everyone's opinion was on that.
I think that, I mean, I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to, like, schizophrenia, but I think it was, like, a fair depiction. I mean, like I said, he's kind of wondering if he's gonna have it, and when it will be triggered, what will trigger it. And I don't really think that I can think of it. I don't really think it was, like, exploitative. You work with people that have schizophrenia, so what's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I felt it was kind of taken, like, dealt with care. I didn't feel it was overly exploitative, and they kind of, like, the Braun character who was the therapist, like, I thought everything kind of seemed correct, what he was talking about.
It's kind of weird. His thing is kind of weird to me, how he, like, basically told Luke to bring Daniel back out, because I think that was, like, more to, like, heal traumas, but I think that's probably, like, an ill-advised move for someone who's, like, predisposed to schizophrenia. Like, I just thought that was strange.
Yeah, I was gonna say, too, like, I don't know if I was thinking Mike might have thought about this, but I kind of really got the vibe of that almost being like a homage to Nightmare on Elm Street. Just because Nightmare on Elm Street also deals, not schizophrenia, but dreams, but the whole idea of, like, pulling someone out of the intangible. And I saw it as, like, almost kind of a nod to that kind of, like, horror.
Oh, yeah, going from, like, the kind of figurative to the literal. And, like, how the trauma that you're, like, experiencing psychologically can manifest itself in reality. And I think in that same way, and actually it's funny that you bring that up, because I never... For whatever reason, maybe because, again, I was watching it late at night in bed, I just didn't make that connection, but that is actually brilliant, and I love that you brought that up. And also, kind of, like, related, I don't think it was exploitative. Again, like, call me on this, I don't know. But I thought it was very interesting in that it was more of... The horror of it all was the paranoia and the terror that this person felt, knowing that he has this, like, psychological genetic legacy, and, like, seeing the horror of that at a young age, and, like, even, I mean, when you get to it, he's still, like, he's barely out of his formative years, like, him seeing that in his late teens, and when he was a child, like, and obviously she gets progressively worse, and him, like, growing up and watching that, and, like, knowing full well, like, this is potentially something that I have waiting for me, and, like, the whole, like, kind of, like, taking that as, like, a metaphor, and the whole, like, terror of it is, like, the paranoia that this breakdown is going to happen to you, and it's just a matter of when and how is it going to present itself. And I think that's why it's so terrifying. And I mean, I think that it's terrifying but not exploitative, because I feel like, especially now, like 50 years ago, it would have been totally different. You would have known what schizophrenia was, and if you did, you certainly wouldn't. No, but, like, now it's like, anybody who gets any kind of, like, diagnosis, you kind of know, like, this is something that could affect your children or whatever. And I feel like that's kind of like where the horror of it comes, in that he would know at this point that this is something that has a not insignificant chance of affecting him too. And it's like, is he bringing this on himself? Is he trying to like kind of cut out the middleman? You know what I mean? And like bringing this childhood sensation back to life as a way of like just saying, I might as well get this ball rolling. Because, and it does, I found this does sort of mix the metaphor and the reality a lot. So
yeah,
you know, and that's a problem, but I just didn't think it was exploitative. I mean, like I said, call me on it. Someone who suffers from mental illness, not that specific one, but I thought that, you know, in terms of like just using it as like a way of exploring the terror of knowing that you could be suffering from something was really interesting.
I've had like 2 panic attacks specifically that were like really bad in the way that like I literally thought I was losing my mind, and it's fucking scary. And I'm not schizophrenic. I don't have like a family history of schizophrenia, but to like be in that place in your head and you really don't know like what's going on is super scary.
Yeah, it's like dissociation, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It's absolutely terrifying. We're getting into it. This is like a therapy session here right now. Yeah. It's just so funny because before you guys moved out of Newfoundland and you were having your final like get together, your final party, and the night that was happening, I had that happen, and I remember feeling awful because I had to miss our final like party together, even though it wasn't gonna be the last time we saw each other. And it was like I remember just like completely flittering about my apartment, like trying to like quell this like insane panic attack and like trying to like pull myself back into like reality, because I just felt like I was completely broken off from like, you know, anything
from
that was
reality.
real. And it was absolutely fucking terrifying. And it's like, it's something that I think, you know, should be addressed in movies, and not necessarily like in a realistic way. I feel like it's kind of constructive and cathartic to look at it in a more metaphorical, like stylized way, like this movie does.
Definitely. Because I think unless you've like experienced that before, I think it would be very hard to explain in like a very like factual, literal way of what you actually experience.
Yeah, like how do you articulate that? And that's the thing. Like that's like a question with all mental illness or anything that happens with like any kind of like a break from reality. Like you can't articulate it really. Like you can only sort of like dance around it, and like that's why like I find like artistic representation of that sort of thing is so important, because you don't need to articulate it exactly. Like you can just approximate it and sort of like look at it at a different angle and like look at it figuratively, as opposed to saying like, here's exactly how I felt mentally when I had my psychotic break. Like, no, that's not something that you can do, because it's so intense and personal and subjective, right? It's so subjective. Like it's literally nobody else can ever understand it. So this is kind of like the only way that we have of being able to in any way like communicate that.
Well, and I think too, like having experienced that for, you know, an hour each time maybe is like, I cannot imagine that being your life.
Yeah, like every day.
That would be
like everyday reality all the time.
That would be horrible. That would literally be so terrible.
Yeah, well, and I mean, all of that stuff rolled in. I think that's what kind of made, like, you know, the ending so impactful and stuff. Because, I mean, even though, you know, on a surface level, you know, Luke jumps off the roof, like, to kill Daniel. I mean, really, to me, and I would assume most people that are looking at it on a little deeper level, like, really what he's doing is, like, you know, he's choosing... He knows how hard he saw the route his mom went with, you know, schizophrenia and that mental health. And then, you know, he ultimately chose to end his life, like, because he didn't want the reality of dealing with that every day. Which, like, you could only, you know, someone like me that's never dealt with any of that kind of mental health issue could only imagine... You know, and like Xylia said, like where I work with people with schizophrenia, like I can only imagine how hard that is for that to be your 24/7 reality. Yeah, and I thought, like I said, made the ending just a lot more impactful and kind of, you know, serious, not necessarily like a happy because Daniel is trapped now.
And imagine just like before anything happens and you're just like, you know, basically you haven't had your onset of schizophrenia, but you have a parent that has it, and just like the amount of trauma that comes with like seeing your parent deal with that and living in that situation. And then like, so you see it from a perspective when you're like fully cognizant of it, and then you experience it. Like, I don't know, that's just, yeah, I empathize.
So let's get into our last question of, is it scary? We'll shoot this over to you first, Mike.
Is it scary? Like, kind of just filmically? Not really, because it kind of it bounced back and forth between like the really dark, but it also had like kind of whimsical moments too, and I feel like especially a lot of the childhood stuff was like darkly whimsical, like, oh look, there's somebody, you know, there's a corpse of a person who just got shot up or whatever. But you know, like his interactions with Daniel were very whimsical and sort of like obviously detaching from reality. In that way, I really didn't find it that scary. And of course, like when you get to the end, the ending was just sort of like so over the top, and they kind of lost track of like mixing the metaphor up with reality, and that took away from the like intensity that I felt of it. But at the same time, again, as we were talking about in terms of like the paranoia that a child would feel in terms of like, is this my destiny? Is this like my psychological heritage? Is this going to happen? How can I stop this? How, like, what recourse do I have? I did find it actually kind of scary. Like I said, like as somebody who maybe can sympathize with distressing mental states in that one regard, I think it is kind of super creepy, because I thought that element of it, like in terms of like metaphor and figurative, it was pretty well done. So no and yes.
No and yes. I feel like that's always kind of our answer. I'll say no, like it wasn't like a jump scare movie. The way that it's kind of paced and everything, like nothing overly like shocked me that I'm like, oh my god, like even when like Daniel kills like Braun and stuff, like you kind of see it coming from a mile away. But yeah, like we said, I mean, it definitely is scary on some of the, when you get into it, past the surface level and the real life implications that serious mental health issues can cause someone, like especially someone young or someone where they have it passed down in their family. But yeah, as a horror movie, no. Xylia.
Of course it's not like, scary. But I think like the psychological aspects are scary. And also there was one scene towards the beginning where he's at his school and he's like, I think has his feet hanging over the roof, or like he's looking down. Ugh. That made my like stomach go into my toes. I hated that.
So are we comfortable to get into rating this? I'll go first. So I am going to give this a yay. I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect, but this will probably definitely go into my rotation of movies to watch. You know, to Xylia's excitement, like I will definitely track this down on Blu-ray and add it to the collection. I really enjoyed it. It was my style aesthetically. I loved the theme of it. I thought they did a great job dealing with it. How about you, Mike?
So I will preface this by saying I thoroughly enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. I was very much prepared for Lace Crater Part the Second, which is not a good thing. But I did really enjoy it. I'm gonna give it an okay, which I know maybe sounds like I'm slagging off on it. I did thoroughly enjoy it. By the time it got to the end, I felt that it was perhaps a bit over the top. Actually, it was quite over the top, and I kind of got a bit irritated with the mixing up of the like metaphorical and the psychological with reality, or like, is this a demon? And I feel like they sort of didn't fully interrogate that to the extent that they should have. But, you know, I just found it enjoyable. The performances were enjoyable. I think that it was well directed, and I can't wait to see what all of these people do next, including the director. So it gets like an okay to almost a yay.
All right.
Is that an okay or is that a yay?
It's a okay.
Okay. okay.
I just made
That's
a new
okay.
rating, bitch. It's a yoke.
How about yourself,
no, you know
Xylia?
what? No, the aesthetic, I will give it a yay. You know what? I was being a bit too critical. It would be a yay. Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed all the performances. I think
He doesn't want to make the
them.
mistake I made with Mandy, so...
No. I do not want to be you and Mandy. Xylia, what about you?
So it actually took me like a week to decide what I was gonna give this movie. I really liked it. I loved the aesthetic. I liked the story. Although I do agree, towards the end it gets like quite haphazard, I find. And I think that the whole demon thing kind of just almost comes out of nowhere and it isn't really developed and fully developed.
Mm-hmm.
I do love Cassie's paintings of cats. That was a big plus for me.
Oh my god, you won! You won. I love it.
I think I'm gonna also give this a yay.
So, the triple yay.
Yeah, triple yay.
I'm liking that. I think that's appropriate for this.
Even though, obviously it has its flaws and the Bechdel test, but, listen, all I'm saying is Cassie is reading one of my favorite books of all time, John Berger's Ways of Seeing, which is one of the most brilliant art books you could ever read, / visual culture. If you like art, if you like movies, if you like historical critiques, especially along the lines of gender and the gays, please read this book. There's a reason why they dropped it in here, because it's an absolutely brilliant, and actually I feel like it kind of if you rewatch this movie, that might give you another lens to watch it through. But anyway, yeah.
I feel like we didn't talk about her very much, but I feel like there's not a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I was gonna say quickly, I thought she could have been a very interesting character, but they didn't really. I don't think they utilized her amazingly.
No, it was such a good actress, and the character was great, but they didn't. There's only so much you can do. She wasn't given. It was really a boys' show. It was the two guys
yes,
sort of fighting for screen time.
She was almost just there to move the plot along.
Yes,
or,
exactly.
To add something to the plot, and that was basically it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So let's get into the budget game.
Okay, Mike has to guess because I may have seen it already.
Oh, I was gonna say, you mean because you always lose?
Did you see the cost? Because I don't have the cost.
No, I saw the price.
Okay.
Them earnings.
So, I mean, we'll not play the budget game.
I was gonna say, if you don't know the cost, we can't really play it anyway.
Well, I know how much it made.
Okay.
So, we'll just... This is a freebie.
Mike gets this by default.
Mike gets it by default.
Yeah, well, Mike would have gotten it anyway, but go ahead, Rowan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
So it made 17,000.
Okay, I saw 12 million.
Oh, no. I don't know where you saw that. So...
Oh, yeah, that doesn't even make sense. It's
apparently we should have just played the game. Yeah, so I have down it made $17,990. I had a very limited release.
Because I was gonna say it's a Shudder exclusive. So
yeah, so this went to streaming. I think I just played in a couple theaters, probably locally and where they're from, all that festival, whatever. So yeah, it's all right. It's a throwaway budget game.
I feel like it's definitely cost more than $17,000 to make.
Oh, I mean, I would assume this cost a couple million to make.
Yeah, so that kind of sucks. 17,000.
Yeah, but they make it all. They make it all on the back end with the streaming services and stuff. They have deals in place for that.
True. Quickly,
for the shameless self-promotion, most importantly, I just wanted to let everyone know, since it is Oktoberfest, it is our favorite month, October. Go to Spotify, listen to the It Slays podcast, horrific playlist. We're always adding music on there, but get some music for the Halloween season. You can listen to it while you do dishes or hand trick-or-treats out on the 31st, or just eat candy yourself.
Or cry in your bedroom by yourself while eating candy.
While eating candy. Whatever you want to do. Also, follow us on all our social media. It Slays Podcasts on absolutely everything. Make sure... Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/itslayspodcast. Check out our Redbubble. If you search It's Slay's Podcast or in any of our social media, we have the links. Grab yourself a t-shirt, a pin, a onesie. There's all kinds of stuff, a tote bag.
Excuse me, are they adult-size onesies? Inquiring minds want to know.
Sadly not, just for little babies. They need to introduce the adult onesie on Redbubble.
I was gonna say, what if we're a baby?
Yeah, really. Also, leave us a review on iTunes, just because when you do that, it helps us get higher up in the searches.
Even if it's about how vulgar the show is.
We apologize.
Especially if you have issues with some of our language.
We apologize for Mike. We try to keep him reined in.
There's no reining me in, bitches. I'm a fucking stallion who cannot be tamed, so just get the fuck over it, okay?
I'm sorry. He's not angry at you guys. He's just an angry person.
I'm just angry in general. Listen, like, this is what I'm saying.
But I wish we could do something about him, but we're stuck, guys. We're stuck with him for life, so we gotta live with it. Yeah, and we have one final thing. So what we do like to do every once in a while when we remember is we post on Instagram and ask how you guys liked the film that we reviewed last episode. So the last episode was Halloween 2. Sadly, only one person wrote us. And Xylia, can you...
The only brave soul to write us was Elamar Official. I think he might be a rising musician.
Or a rising spam artist.
I don't know. I think he's a musician, but he... So the question was, what did you think of Halloween 2? And he wrote... sorry. He wrote, "Better days are coming. Please keep safe. 100 crown heart." So I thought that was a very nice.
That's touching. I'm moved by 100.
What I like to think is maybe he hated Halloween 2 and he meant better days are coming when you get to the rest of the series, which I would be offended by.
And maybe 100 crown heart is what he wishes that they spent on wigs, which is obviously not what they spent on wigs.
So that's a little treat for all the people that listen past Rowan's advertisements here.
Terrible. So last thing we have to do is announce our next movie, which is also, sadly, our last film for Oktoberfest. We gave you 4 reviews all month, so the 4th one, it felt kind of only right to do it kind of iconic, Halloween-esque franchise. We picked the original Saw. I think this is our first dive into, the torture porn world. One of the films that kind of brought it to the forefront of the mainstream. And we also kind of agreed that they usually release around Halloween time.
Yes.
So it seemed very appropriate. So hopefully you guys tune in for that. That will be dropping on Halloween Day. It'll be out before you're awake. I'm gonna make sure that you guys have it so you can listen to it all Halloween.
By that, Rowan means it'll be out by November 20th.
It will be out on the 31st. I pinky swear. But that is everything for now. As always, thank you for listening and supporting us, and we'll be back soon. My name is Rowan.
Bye, it's Xylia.
It's Mike. Thanks. Come again. No. Don't come again. Stop it. It's Mike. Hello. Goodbye. I'm late. No. Wait. Hang on. No. I gotta get a good one. Should I say something edgelord like, go fuck yourself?
Do it.
Just go, it's Mike. No. I can't. Is my name Mike? I think this is Mike. Goodbye.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store. Back where it says horror videos and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
On with the new fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.